Good afternoon. Welcome to our Friday Capstone. Our first capstone today is by Ms. Caitlyn Hulin. This is her thesis statement. Research shows mothers of young children who rightly extol the gift of motherhood can experience higher rates of anxiety and depression. Yet living in an authentic community can lessen the shame that mothers feel. Please welcome Caitlyn.
Amelia stood in the doorway of the nursery. The soft hum of the baby monitor filled the silence of the home, as well as the faint, uneven breathing of her daughter asleep in the crib. Everyone told her this would be the happiest time of her life. She just kept waiting for that feeling to arrive. She watched her baby, so perfect and small, and felt a wave of panic instead of the promised joy. What if I do something wrong? What if I already have? Her heart raced as if something was wrong, yet it never was. People text her, "How are you feeling? Isn't it amazing?" All Amelia could do was stare at those messages. She loved her baby, and she knew that, but it didn't feel the way she thought it would. Suddenly, Amelia couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears streamed down her face as if they had been waiting beneath the surface. Amelia's story is one of thousands of young mothers, but fostering authentic relationships with family members and friends can significantly decrease feelings of anxiety and depression and offer support in moments that feel overwhelming. Research shows mothers of young children who rightly extol the gift of motherhood can experience higher rates of anxiety and depression, yet living in an authentic community can lessen the shame that the mothers feel. In this presentation, I will first explore the Catholic understanding of motherhood, particularly through the example of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Secondly, examine how social media use can distort the ideal of motherhood. Thirdly, examine the relationship between social media use of moms and rates of anxiety and depression, especially in postpartum mothers. And finally, offer possible spiritual and practical solutions. Within Catholic communities, motherhood is recognized as a vocation rooted in sacrifice, love, selflessness, and one that delights in participation in God's creative plan. However, one's view of this vocation can suffer from romanticization. According to Merriam-Webster, romanticism is the quality or state of being impractical or unrealistic. Romanticism develops when beautiful truths about motherhood are emphasized in a way that becomes idealized, especially when the harder realities of life are excluded or minimized. The Blessed Virgin Mary is rightly honored as the perfect model of holiness for mothers, but romanticism occurs when reflecting on her as an unattainable standard, when she is presented as effortlessly peaceful, unaffected by the troubles of daily life, always serene and strong without struggle. This can unintentionally make mothers feel like they must match or live up to that standard, instead of viewing Mary as an inspiration and someone who desires to assist us through her intercession. This perfectly serene image of Our Lady is not only inaccurate, since Scripture depicts her experiences of fear and finding of the temple, loss, and deep sorrow throughout Christ's passion, but also disregards the fact that she was immaculately conceived. She exists in a state without original sin, and did not experience concupiscence, the natural propensity towards sin, every other mother and person apart from her in Christ experienced. In Catholic theology, Mary is the model of holiness, but she is not meant to be a performance standard that ordinary mothers are measured against in a strict or competitive way. However, some Catholic communities, through well-intentioned pious speaking, can present her as a standard, and this ultimately results in comparison. Official teaching doesn't present her that way. The Catholic Church does state that Mary is the Mother of God and Mother of the Church. Therefore, she acts as each of our mothers. While Mary's gift of motherhood works in profound cooperation with God's plan for salvation, the Catholic Church upholds the dignity of the natural or ordinary vocation of motherhood. This can be seen in St. Pope John Paul II's letter to women. He perceives motherhood as a joyful, unique, and special gift. He sees motherhood as an embodiment of God's gentleness by guiding children's first steps into their physical and spiritual life. He rightly notes that motherhood is not simply confined to giving birth, but rather continuously placing others before themselves. A mother gives generously of her body. She grows the child for 9 months, endures painful contractions, births the child, and feeds the child. Mothers mirror Christ in the way their body is broken and given for the sake of nurturing others. St. Pope John Paul II rightly believes that their daily sacrifice mirrors Christ's love. Thus, motherhood ought to be rightly extolled, particularly through a Catholic lens. However, the ideal of the vocation of motherhood has been greatly distorted. One major factor towards this end is social media. Many pregnant women in the U.S. use social media to get access to information regarding children's health and support related to parenting. Data from Pew Research Center suggests that parents were heavy consumers of social media, with up to 75% of parents reporting use. Within that 75%, mothers reported daily usage of social media for the purpose of parenting support. So, what are these moms seeing on their social media? One example is Nora Smith. She is an Instagram and TikTok mom influencer who has 12.4 million followers and portrays videos of her get ready with me's, homemade meals and snacks, and vlogs. She has 4 children, and her content only displays a perfectly clean house, and she posts content daily. Young mothers' social media feeds are full of mom influencers like this that display a distorted idea of motherhood. A highlight reel of carefully curated snapshots that present them as the perfect mom for others to try to live up to. Thus, social media use in mothers can lead to higher rates of anxiety and depression. Studies show that nearly 3/4 of moms surveyed compare themselves to other moms on social media, with up to 24.5% doing so often and 48% sometimes. Nearly 1 in 5 moms noted that social media has negatively influenced their parenting style, and close up to 35% reported feeling pressured to create and share content that portrays a perfect parenting lifestyle. Statistics also show that more than half of moms admit to experience mom guilt sometimes, while 24.3% often feel it. Mom guilt is the persistent, often irrational feeling of shame or self-doubt that mothers experience when they believe they are failing to meet societal standards of good parenting. It often manifests as an internal anxiety about working, napping when time is given, and taking time for oneself. Nearly 60% note a link between the guilt they feel and what they see from fellow parents and mom influencers online. This feeling of guilt can often lead to shame. According to Merriam-Webster, shame is caused when one feels like they have a shortcoming or inadequate. According to ScienceDirect.com, mothers who experience more shame about their mental health symptoms are also less likely to seek support, reporting fear about not being seen as a good or capable mother. This then leads to more isolation, more stress, and overall more disconnection from others and their child. When mothers feel shame about being depressed after carrying and having a child, it makes them want to be disconnected from their child and others. New mothers are especially vulnerable to this type of anxiety, depression, guilt, and shame due to postpartum biological factors. A mother is considered postpartum from the time she gives birth until 6 to 8 weeks. However, postpartum depression can persist up to 3 years after giving birth. Postpartum depression is a serious health issue that can affect around 15% of the female population after giving birth. This is because postpartum depression is triggered by specific factors that include biological changes in hormone levels. The changes disrupt their neurotransmitter systems in response to stress pathways, which leaves some mothers more vulnerable to mood disorders. The neurotransmitters are chemical messengers primarily in the brain that are responsible for regulating mood, behavior, and emotional responses. However, the demands of motherhood during the first year make this extremely difficult, since mothers often sleep 5 to 6 hours of fragmented sleep a night and often forgo their own needs like eating incomplete meals in effort to prioritize their child's needs. So when a new mom consumes social media within this context and sees unachievable standards, these neurotransmitters have great difficulty in doing their job, in regulating the mother. Rather, the mother ends up feeling depressed and anxious. For mothers struggling with their mental health, there is hope. Awareness is the first crucial step when addressing the issue of mother's mental health. Simply educating oneself about this topic can allow you to be sensitive to the needs and experiences of mothers you know. A second helpful step for mothers struggling to gain a healthy mindset could be to limit social media use. Thirdly, for the mother to enter into support groups so that the woman can gain support that they need mentally and emotionally. A support group can serve as an authentic community for the mother. An authentic community is a group of people connected by shared values, trust, and genuine relationships rather than mere proximity or convenience. This experience can lead to reduced anxiety, improved mental health, and shared support. They are moving from feeling isolated and trying to fulfill the role of the perfect mother to becoming more vulnerable with honest conversations, mutual encouragement, and shared resources. A study conducted showed that mothers without strong support from a community had higher levels of stress, and the mothers with higher levels of stress were more worn down and pessimistic about parenting. They also found that the opposite was true as well. Mothers with strong support from the communities had lower levels of stress and were optimistic about parenting. As a final solution, you can be a reliever for mothers in our community as well. For example, you can offer encouragement and tell the mother she's doing a great job. Emphasize that seeking help is not shameful, but rather allows others the opportunity to fulfill their Christian duty to love one's neighbor. Offer to babysit for free to give her a break so she could go to mass and confession without juggling the children. Or cook a meal for her family, for the mom, so she has to worry about one less thing. Marguerite Kelly, a columnist of the Family Almanac for the Washington Post and author of 3 books on parenting, states that motherhood brings as much joy as ever, but it still brings boredom, exhaustion, and sorrow too. Nothing else will ever make you as happy or as sad, as proud or as tired, for nothing is quite as hard as helping keep a person develop his own individuality, especially while you struggle to keep your own. The perfect example of motherhood is the Blessed Virgin Mary, the mother of Christ, our mother. Knowing that Mary has been through the same course of motherhood with triumphs and struggles is comforting to mothers. To know she's disciplined, fed, and played with Christ the child allows mothers to be accompanied by her in a real sense. She knows how it feels to be anxious over their safety, as in the finding of the temple, to have a husband that works outside of the home, and ultimately to suffer the greatest pain of watching her child suffer through his passion. Mary displays the ideal that all mothers should strive for, but it is not the standard which mothers should measure themselves against. Mary also illustrates the solution to the anxiety and depression so many modern mothers experience now. She lived in an authentic community with other mothers too. In the second joyful mystery, the Visitation, Mary goes in haste to see Elizabeth. She is highlighting the importance of sharing joy and providing others to support Mary, and providing support to others, as Mary went to support her cousin, who was also expecting a child. This same community can be possible for modern mothers too. Remember Amelia's story from the beginning. She felt overwhelmed by her reality, fears, and expectations of the world, and tears streamed down her face. Her sister entered the room. She didn't try to fix all these problems immediately. Rather, she moved closer to Amelia and held her hand. You're not broken, and you're not alone in this. The next morning, Amelia, encouraged by her sister, sought help from professionals like doctors and counselors, asked her sister to check in on her frequently, and joined a weekly mom support group at her church. She learned to breathe again, as she began to navigate this new, stressful, and joyful vocation of motherhood. Thank you.
We'll begin with faculty questions, please.
Mr. Baker?
Thank you for your presentation. It seems like community is super important in a lot of contexts, and I'm wondering what are some ways in which young people can start to foster and develop authentic communities now so that it's easier when they're in difficult moments, like for example, just after childbirth?
Thank you for your question. So I definitely think that children today, or like my peers and stuff, can help mothers just like by encouragement and encouraging others to be like what, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, so not so much with regards to the moms yet, but rather just fostering good community like in your age group, so that way it carries through to motherhood. Does that make sense?
Yes. So encouragement is a really big role in this. Just by telling others like you're doing a great job, and like them like really taking that deep down is like a big help for like all my peers and stuff today. Yeah. Mr. Berkeley?
Thank you for your presentation. Sorry if I missed it, but could you remind us what the rate of anxiety and depression is among young mothers, and then how that compares to the rate among the general population?
Yes,
Is it
I
higher?
can. Postpartum depression can affect around 15% of the female population after giving birth. But I didn't do too much research on like the overall population.
Thank you.
Ms. Melissa?
Thank you for your presentation, Caitlyn. I'd like to ask a question in your opinion, based on your research and your personal opinion. Sometimes we as mothers find ourselves in a community that isn't as supportive. Maybe we're not relating ourselves to people on social media, but our fellow sister-in-laws or our fellow mother-in-laws and et cetera. What advice would you give if a young lady or a husband finds himself in a situation where perhaps the community that they're surrounded with, the supportive community that they thought would be there, isn't really panning out to what way can they reach out to a more supportive community, or what communication do you think that might need to happen?
I think that prayer is a big like what they should strive for, or like what they should turn towards to when situations like that happen. So definitely praying to our mother for the strength and like to gain that encouragement from her would be beneficial to the mothers. And maybe like her trusted friends and her spouse can help encourage her and tell her she's doing a great job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Lee.
Thank you for your presentation, Caitlyn. In our community here at JPG, we have several mothers, many of whom have very small children, even infants. So in the upper school and in the lower school, I'm wondering if you can highlight a few things that might be helpful for students to keep in mind in their classes with teachers who have, babies and are going through the difficulties that you described in your presentation of not having enough sleep, a lot of pressures of motherhood. What are some things that you could highlight for students in our own community to keep in mind to love these mothers in our community well?
I'd say just to be give them space and give them time to breathe. As teaching, I know with working at a daycare, their kids can be really stressful at times. So I guess just whenever the students here see teachers are getting frustrated a bit more, they can just take a step back and realize okay, I need to calm down. I need to pay attention more. I need to regulate what I'm doing at school. So yeah, I guess they can just realize internally what it is. I just need to focus in school to show the teachers respect. And yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. McConnell.
Thank you, Caitlyn. It seems like you're arguing that our lady can be a kind of example that we can look to, especially an example for mothers. And I couldn't help but think of the Stabat Mater. So Mary stands at the foot of the cross in that image of her. And it seems like mothers can look up to Mary as an example, but maybe we can too in terms of our response toward suffering mothers. And so I was wondering if you could speak to how we, the audience, can respond by imitating Our Lady in that way toward the suffering mother.
Could you rephrase your question?
Yeah, so what you said that Our Lady is not just this kind of calm and serene mother, she's a mother who suffers as well. And I thought of the Stabat Mater, which means to say Mary stands. It references her posture at the foot of the cross. So when Jesus was dying, she was in deep suffering, but she stands. She doesn't crumble in despair. And so I wonder, she's in solidarity with the Lord in that way. And I wonder if we can be an example of that or model that before the suffering woman or mother, right, who is suffering in the way that maybe Jesus is. Maybe we can an example, or we can respond in the same way that Mary did. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So I guess for the person just to have an interior freedom to show the mother how that they can I guess is what I've been saying, to tell them that they're doing a great job too, and show them support from you can help them, you can offer to babysit, you can offer to cook the meals and stuff. So I guess just to show them they're not alone and they're not broken if they're feeling that way or yeah.
Thank you, Caitlyn.
Mr. Peretti.
Thank you, Caitlyn. In the community that the mom needs after birth, it should likely, I imagine, begin with the husband, and that has me thinking about paternity leave. In your research, have you come across the importance of the role of that paternity leave, of a father being around regularly?
Yes, I have. So the maternity leave in the USA provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave. But some states don't actually have that paid leave, which is Louisiana. I don't think that they have that much of a paid leave, but I think it. So you're wondering about the paternity?
The father's presence
Yeah.
in the weeks or months following the birth. Does that have any impact on the mental health of the mother, any support for the child?
I think it definitely does. The father is a provider, protector of the mother and the child. So I definitely do think that paternity leave is really important for the mother's mental health and the child as well.
Are there any senior questions?
Zach?
Thanks for your presentation. Is there any significant difference that we should know about when a mother is feeling guilt or shame, or the terms like basically synonymous? Also have a follow-up question.
I think they're basically the same.
So, when we're trying to comfort a mother in this sort of situation, how should we be aware of their guilt or shame that they may be experiencing, and like be aware of that as we are trying to comfort them?
Maybe just to like offer support and help, and just to ask them like the straight up question, like what are you feeling, like I'm all this, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Caitlyn.